Hello and welcome. Today we'll be looking at the empty nest syndrome, assessing what it is, the emotional impact, and how to cope and treat it. Empty nest syndrome can be described as a feeling of loss, grief, or loneliness that results from the event of children leaving their parents' home for the first time. This syndrome is not officially categorized as a clinical condition, but rather as a time of transition for parents. For individuals with partners or more children, this period of time can be less severe, as they maintain some form of normality by caring for those around them. However, stay-at-home or single parents are at the biggest risk of empty nest syndrome, with the issue being more prevalent in women. The emotional impact of this syndrome is shown through sadness, grief, and loneliness. Sadness is one of the basic emotions that people can feel after being harmed or receiving a threat. In the case of empty nest syndrome, sadness is felt as a result of child separating from their respective parent. The emotion of sadness can negatively affect an individual's well-being, with it being correlated to the physiological stress in adults. This can cause motivation in the individual wanting to change the behavior, but can be detrimental to their well-being. Grief is an emotion that is formed in response to loss, being a feeling of distress that stems from the emotion of sadness. In the case of empty nest syndrome, grief comes as a result of the parents feeling like they lost their child. This process can be described by the Kubler-Ross model, which shows grief in 5 stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. This can have a significant impact on the individual, with grief negatively affecting physiological and psychological aspects of the body. Loneliness is categorized as an emotional response that individuals have towards isolation. In the case of empty nest syndrome, the feeling of loneliness would possibly be majorly present after the child leaves. The response is unhealthy for the body, as it can negatively impact the cardiovascular, immune, and nervous systems. The emotional response of loneliness can be detrimental to the individual's well-being and lead to larger issues in health if not confronted early on. Individuals that suffer from empty nest syndrome can cope and move on with keeping themselves occupied with interests or hobbies. Community participation has been shown to relieve the symptoms of empty nest syndrome, with parents forming social groups that fulfill their needs. Employment can also serve as a means of parents finding new purpose, pursuing an area that they are passionate about. For parents that still have their respective partner, this period of time can be beneficial to the relationship, becoming a time where they can change their focus to one another. After the children leave home, the marital status of couples can seemingly improve as a result. Empty nest syndrome is more of a transitional period for parents to accept the independence of their child that can be considered a normal part of the family cycle. Parents need to be aware of the effects, as it can gravely affect their overall quality of life. They must also know that there are ways that they can overcome this through social participation, employment, hobbies, and improving their existing relationships. Individuals must be aware of how our emotions can affect our psychological state as well as our physical state, playing a pivotal role in maintaining our overall well-being.